Hey guys, welcome back to part 2 of the turbo install. Now, I've got to thank everyone that commented on the first video and gave suggestions on whether to drop the engine or do it from the bottom. I reckon it was probably about 50-50 with the comments, although I didn't tally it up perfectly, but I reckon it was about 50-50. Now, I'm going to go the option I was originally going to do, and I think it's just because in my head I've been planning to do it that way for months. And like I said yesterday, I've already had the subframe off before, so pretty much every clip that I could have broken, I've already broken. Where I think if I drop the engine, there's a lot of things that I'll be undoing that's never been undone before, and it might just open another can of worms. And it was quite a few guys actually said that could be the case, and it's playing on my mind. And actually, last night I started to do a few things that were going to need to be taken off, whether we do engine drop or from the bottom, just in the engine bay. And I disconnected the battery and noticed that there was about 30 mil of water around the battery, which I wasn't aware of. So I've got a leak in the boot, just more things to play with. And I really want to get these turbos done this week and just not find any more problems. So I'm going to do it from the bottom. But yeah, again, thanks to everyone that shouted, well, recommended which way they think it should be done. Also, thanks to BMW N54, Baller N54. I see you comment on a lot, and he's a local, well, he's not local, but he is a Queenslander. And he's been playing with his N54 for ages, and he actually can change the turbos from the top without taking the subframe and all that off, and he just moves the engine over, which makes a lot of sense, and I guess it would definitely be doable, but with the tools I've got here, it's not something I can do. But you know, I do appreciate the tip there. Anyway guys, so on this episode, I want to get the turbos out of the car. Oh, I was just going to say as well, the other reason I'm not going to drop the engine now, I'm trying to buy something this week that will result in this engine coming out anyway by the end of the year. So, and I need to get a few more tools because I haven't really got anything to move it or even put it on once it drops out. Anyway, let's get on with this one. In this episode, I'm going to get the standard turbos out and hopefully compare them to the Chinese 17Ts. So I'm going to move the camera around and let's get straight onto it. So I'll just show you what I did last night. And like I said, this would have to be done whether I was dropping the engine or doing it the way I'm going to do it. But I have removed the coolant tank, not charcoal canisters, the vacuum canisters that sit just there, the radiator fan shroud has been removed, pod filters have been removed, the weather or trim panel from the top has been removed, and I've dropped the coolant, and it's still dripping down there. So yeah, that's pretty much nearly everything I've got to do from the top. I didn't bother removing the O2 sensor wiring because when I was doing it last night, I wasn't sure if the engine was going to come out. But yeah, from this point on, I think from the top, the only thing I've really got to do is disconnect the two O2 sensors. So I can disconnect them and run the wires down, and that will come out with the downpipe. But for now, let's get the car back up on the hap, and I'll show you what we're doing from the bottom. All right, so let's work out a bit of a game plan. Now, from memory, what I'm going to take off first, we've got the plastic covers. My car's had a main undertray delete, it's way faster. But these plastic covers I've got to get off to remove this cross member or support bar. Once that is off, I'm going to undo the power steering lines, disconnect them from the rack, take the sway bar off, and then take off or undo the control arms from the subframe. From that point, I'll probably have to drop the engine back down and undo the engine mounts. Or actually, I can probably undo them from this side and then lift them up that way. So actually, yeah, I'll undo the engine mounts here. And once I've done that, I'll give you another update. So let me get on with that one. Alright, so a quick update, although pretty much everything that I've done here is super simple. We've undone the control arms from the subframe. Obviously the cross member has been removed, and also the sway bar. They're all common, simple, very basic things to do. But if you have any questions about it, just hit us up. Now the first thing that does get a bit tricky is removing the steering rack. These have an E13 or an E14, I can't remember what it is, I will double check and I'll put the right one in the video, I hope, and then a 16mm nut on the top. Now, with the right-hand drive, getting up in here to get to the 16mm nut on this side is actually quite easy, but on the other side it is pretty tight to get up in there. Now, some people use bendable spanners and that sort of thing. I think I got up to it through this side last time. But what I'm going to do from this point, I'm going to actually put the cross member on the engine and actually take the weight off the engine so I can undo the engine mounts. And then I can actually drop the subframe. I could probably drop the subframe 10 or 15 mil just on its mounting bolts, and then that'll make it much easier to get access to that. And that'll also allow me to slide the steering rack out. When the subframe's right up against the chassis, you just don't have as much clearance to move the steering rack forwards. So I guess I better drop the car back down. So I just want to set this up because this is a really, really old engine support bar. We had it from when we used to have a wrecking yard, and it just doesn't fit the E92s very well. This is how I ended up having to do it, which is a bit sketch. And something to keep in mind, like once I've got the subframe off, this is what's going to be holding the engine and most of the gearbox. So just take your time when you're setting these things up. The way that I've done it, and I sort of learned this from last time, it shouldn't slide once it's loaded up, but I put 2 bolts in there and I just basically wedge it against the bolts so that this will not slide forwards. And because of the way this thing works, the Schwaben ones of these are so much better. Maybe all the newer ones are, but because of the height between the ring and the bar, you basically got to set it up so that the tow hook will slide past the bar. But that should work for that. And I've got a little bit of tension on it now. I should put a little, that's a little bit of tension on it. I'll put the car back up and undo the engine mounts. Alright, so that is the bar tension lifting the engine up, and I've only lifted it up a little bit, but hopefully you can see just here on the engine mount, that's lifted it up about 2 or 3 mil, and the mount you can actually move. So there's no load on the engine mounts at the moment. So I'll put it back up and lower the subframe down a little bit. Alright, so just so quickly, we've got that much play in the subframe now. Obviously the steering rack is still connected to the subframe, but it gives us a lot more space to get over the top of the rack and access to the top nut that's holding the steering rack on. So I'm going to crack those off. We've got the hoses loose. That one is actually loose. So, and that should give me enough room to get the steering rack away. All right. Okay, steering rack is all loose and ready to come, or slide forward at least. I'm going to remove this heat shield next, and that's just to give us a little bit more wiggle room as we wiggle the subframe around the steering rack. I'm going to leave the steering rack obviously all connected and in place, but just try and swing it out the way. There was heaps of room when I did it doing the downpipe, so hopefully it's going to be the same in this case. And because our steering column is on this side, I can just swing it down that way and hopefully won't have too many dramas. So I'm going to remove that heat shield and I'll give you an update once I've done that. But basically after the heat shield's done as well, I just need to unbolt this coolant pipe, which has got a weird Torx bit up there. It's probably easy to get to from this side. But I've got to get that off and then it's ready for the subframe to come off. So I've got Master Mechanic Dave helping me do this. Basically what we need to do is undo the last 2 bolts on the subframe, slide the subframe this way to get over this tie rod or whatever they're called, steering rack end, and then we'll be able to slide it the other way and she'll just come off easy. So subframe's out. Now depending on how enthusiastic we get with the edits and how much we show you guys, that was an absolute struggle to get the subframe off this. And it wasn't last time we did it. However, what's changed, when we dropped the subframe off last time, it was the first time I'd been up in here, and 2 of these rubber mounts were actually snapped. So these hoses weren't held together as well as they are right now. So if you're doing this on a right-hand drive, before you try and take the subframe off, undo these mounts here, here, and here. I'm going to undo those before it goes back on because it gives you more room to get the subframe over that way and over that end of the steering rack. Okay, so with the subframe off, I also poked the engine mount and the bottom of it fell out, so that's awesome. Now I actually just went and ordered another engine mount straight away, express post, so hopefully we'll have that here with any luck tomorrow or Friday. Fingers tightly crossed, because obviously I'm going to need that to put the car back together. But from this point on, I'm probably going to try and remove the engine mount. I should be able to get a ratchet up in there, then take the downpipes off, and then we should have pretty good vision of the turbos. I'm also going to take off the water pump and thermostat. That hose I actually replaced when I did the water pump last year. I never did the thermostat last year. And I remember this hose, checking this hose feels quite good, but this one has gone a bit soft. Now that's the one that goes up to the cylinder head, so I'm going to try and see if I can get one of those for the weekend as well. Anyway, I'm going to switch to a time lapse. I'm going to remove the downpipes, remove the engine mounts, and you guys will see me when I'm done. So in that last time lapse, you would have just seen me feeding the O2 sensors through from the top, and that should mean the downpipes are ready to come out. Should be careful with the O2 sensor wiring. Undoing the downpipes is all pretty straightforward. The only hiccup I had, the clamps that hold them onto the turbos were, they needed to be hit to come off. But anyway, that's one downpipe off. And the other one, yeah, this clamp is still firmly on. Come on. Come on. There it is. Cool. So both downpipes are off. So we can see up into the back turbo up in there, and there's the front turbo there. From this point, I'm going to take the engine mount off here with those four Torx bits, sorry. And from that point, it'll just be the water pump next. Okay, so we've got water pump and thermostat off, and you can sort of see most of the front turbo now. Next in line, I'm going to get the coolant lines off. So I want to get this main coolant hose out. To do that, I actually started doing it before, but it's just an E-Torx. We'll get all these off, and I'll update you in a second. Well, unfortunately, I've run out of time today and I didn't get the turbos off. That's been, say, 5 hours?
Something like that, yeah.
Much longer than I expected. To be fair, not been working on it solid. Had a couple of phone calls and a few visitors come in today. But yeah, it's taken us 5 hours to get to this point, and I thought I'd call it here because I was starting to rush trying to get the turbos off in this video and forgot that there would be oil in the oil pan, and then oil went everywhere. Then I smashed a light bulb. So it was fun. Unfortunately, none of it was on camera. Sorry, guys. But from this point here, it was all, from what you last saw, getting the water pump thermostat off. That's all been pretty straightforward. Getting to all of these, Torx bits is all okay. A mixture of using Allen key style, this style, and then our normal socket torque bits. But yeah, I'm going to wrap it up here, go and get this video uploaded so you guys can see how the progress is going. The only thing I really want to add to anyone that's trying this on the right-hand drive is make sure you undo all these things. That was really quite tight today. And aside from that, it's all pretty simple. But yeah, had a couple of hiccups, especially with my engine mount, which is knackered. I've actually jumped online and ordered one of them. That took about half an hour sourcing that one, so hopefully it'll be here on Friday. Oh, what else did I find? Water pump bolt. I replaced this water pump back in, I think, November last year. And yeah, I think I did say in the other video I didn't actually change water pump bolts, and one is still in the block just there. So that was the only sort of surprise. Anyway, I'm going to go get this put up online, and you'll see some more of it tomorrow when we finally get these turbos off. All right, guys, thank you very much for watching. We'll catch you on the next one.